Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, the busiest man in Knoxville sports radio, sports writing, Ben McKee. GoVols247. Go subscribe today and keep up with Ben. I mean, we're only a couple weeks away from baseball. So Ben do we call this Ben McKee season, with baseball and basketball about to intersect here, Mr. McKee?
I don't know. I'll leave that up to the good people, because I know a lot of people are in football portal mode still, and I'm not the only one who does a great job of covering basketball and baseball at the same time. Ryan Shumpert and Mike Wilson would like a piece of that compliment as well. It's certainly going to be a busy time of year, and the three of us like to joke that it would be nice if one program could take a step back, because when both are really good at the same time, it makes our jobs really, really stressful and very, very busy. But we say that tongue in cheek. We obviously prefer to cover what we cover, and that's two great programs with basketball and baseball. Last year was a lot of fun. Elite Eight, national championship. Hopefully this year's team can even turn that up a notch, maybe make a Final Four, and then the baseball team can go repeat as well.
Well, they can't drop any more Vanderbilts and get that one seed if they want to make the Final Four. We'll talk about that here in a second, Ben. But yeah, I mean, it's here, and it's the time of the year where you're like, man, because baseball, it just takes so much more of your time. Like the weekends, like you're so much more invested because they get the Tuesday and then they get the weekend, and this is the season where your wife walks by and she's like, they can't be on again. And I'm like, no, they're on. And they're going to be on for like the next 5 months, because this team, like you said, they're just really good. Like, you could have questions about whether or not Tennessee is going to be able to repeat. But I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Tennessee into Omaha until Tennessee doesn't go to Omaha over this stretch. And I think they're super talented and absolutely can do that. Because, I mean, the hardest season that Tennessee's had in the last 4, they made Omaha. Like that it just... I don't know. The question you have, I'm not going to go against Tony Vitello, and I'm just going to go ahead and pencil in that Tennessee is going to be able to play baseball, be still playing baseball in the summer.
It's a safe bet, and it's a good way to make a lot of money. I guess if you need to make some extra cash, maybe I should consider doing so. I kid, of course, but they're going to have the talent to do so. They're going to have the lineup to do so, and the pitching staff is pretty inexperienced. There's going to be a lot of guys in new roles, but there's a ton of talent on the pitching side of things. It's just a matter of, can they piece it all together, and can guys who have not been asked to do what they're going to be asked to do this year, can they succeed in their new roles? And if it clicks for the pitching staff the way it has the potential to do so, then this team is going to be very, very dangerous, and they'll have an opportunity to go win another national championship, as crazy as that may sound. With the way that they're recruiting and as much talent as they have coming in each offseason, they're going to have a chance to win the national championship for the next several years, especially when you pair the development and the culture and the resources that are now being pumped into the program. They're going to have a chance to win multiple national championships, as crazy of a thought as that is currently, and as crazy of a thought as that was 5-7 years ago. I mean, it's the truth. So my expectation for this year's team is Omaha, and we'll see if they can get back and make some noise while they're there.
Well, we're not quite there yet. We still are in the middle of conference play here in hoops. Ben McKee, gigantic game on Saturday night at Auburn. There's just no way around it. It's a gigantic game for Tennessee. It's a measuring stick game for Tennessee. It's a little bit dicey here on the road in conference play to start things off for the Vols. But if you want to get back that loss from Vanderbilt and you want to get back in the 1 seed, just permanent conversation, you win and upset the Tigers at Auburn on Saturday. Put you in a great position to be in that 1 seed field for a while here. But it doesn't get easier for Tennessee when you look at that. And that was they had a couple unranked games here in the early part of their conference slate, but now comes the Alabamas, the Auburns, the Kentuckys, the Ole Misses still. Like they got through Mississippi State here in TBA on Tuesday night, but What do you make of this game against Auburn on Saturday? And do you think Tennessee has the potential to spring an upset?
I almost think it's a must win, which seems a bit odd given that Tennessee is a top 10 team and a lock to make the tournament. So I guess I should note that it's a must win in the sense of winning the SEC, keeping pace with Auburn, because it doesn't seem like Auburn is ever going to lose. But they will drop a couple at some point. The league is too good. The nature of the sport, that they will drop. If I had to guess, here on January 23rd, what 2-3 SEC losses for Auburn seems realistic. Although they continue to find ways to win, so maybe they're never going to lose. Maybe they're going to go 40-0 and win the national championship, whatever record they would have to go. Even with Janai Broom, I mean, they just continue to roll. They have had a couple of moments where they do look human, but still managed to pull out the win. So just in terms of keeping pace for an SEC championship, regular season championship, but also like what you're talking about with the 1 seed, staying on that one line, solidifying yourself as a 1 seed. Maybe not as much of a must win in the 1 seed conversation, because you do have other opportunities, like you mentioned. You have 2 games with Kentucky. Florida comes to town next Saturday at A&M. There's so many more games on the schedule at Ole Miss to end the season. You have so many more games in which you can really bolster your resume and claim a 1 seed. But I do think that this would go a long ways. So I know it's a bit crazy maybe, because Tennessee record-wise is in a great position. It's going to be in a great position going into the NCAA tournament. You really only want to break out a must-win conversation when you're trying to get into the NCAA tournament. So maybe I'm off base, but in terms of keeping pace in the SEC and solidifying yourself as a 1 seed, this win would go a long ways, especially towards solidifying that 1 seed, because I don't know that Tennessee is going to pick up a better win than this one. Right now, their best win is at Illinois. That win at Louisville continues to look better and better by the week. But if you were to win at Auburn, I don't care if Janai Broom is playing or not. That place is a house of horrors. To win that game, I mean, you would really make your case for being a 1 seed, and that would go the distance. It would go all the way to Selection Sunday. It could be the difference in you getting a 1 seed and you getting a 2 seed. So I think it's a must win in that regard. And I do think that they have a chance to win on Saturday, obviously. Do I have a ton of confidence? No, I'd be lying if I said I did. Regardless of what the teams look like on paper, I mean, that place is just a house of horrors for any team that walks in there, not just Tennessee, but Lord knows we've seen some Tennessee teams walk in there the last several years and just not go well whatsoever. So it will need a lot of things to go well. They're going to have to limit the turnovers. Auburn does a great job of turning you over. They don't turn the basketball over as well. So you're going to have to limit some of those careless turnovers that have plagued the team here and there. Even without Janai Broom, you're still going to have to deal with Dylan Cardwell, and he's an absolute beast inside in the paint. So it's going to be a key game for Felix Okpara, Igor Milicic Jr., Cade Phillips. And you're going to have to make shots. You can't have the 5-7 minute spurts on the road to where just shots aren't falling. You need Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler and Jordan Gainey to step up and knock some shots down. And Jemai Meshack, Auburn needs to feel his defensive presence, feel that he is the best perimeter defender in the country. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that need to go right for Tennessee. So they certainly have a chance to win on Saturday night. I just think I don't have a ton of confidence, as I said.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, part of it with I mean, I don't know where you stand ultimately on this, Ben, but it's been 6 days since Barnes sat Sakai for 7 minutes and 40 seconds in the first half with 2 fouls, where he ended up with 2 fouls with 40 seconds left in the second half at Vanderbilt. I mean, this is a game where you talk about it, where you talk about the worry of the offensive spurts. That what it is like they made 1 field goal without Sakai in the first half in that Vanderbilt game. Like, he is the engine. Like, he is the guy who is finding guys. He is driving and kicking. He is, when things get when things stall, there's a good chance that Zakai is not on the floor for Tennessee during those moments. And I just think it's one of those, the rules cannot apply to Zakai. He should not be playing by the same rules as Bishop Boswell or Darlinstone Dubar or Cade Phillips or even Igor Milicic Jr. Like, he, at year 4, long-term starter, he's the heart and soul of the program, he's your MVP. Like, he plays through it. Like, it's just one of those where you have to get over that rule. And I mean, you and I are NBA guys. Like, there's superstar rules, there's star rules. And I think Zakai has earned that superstar role of like, hey, I trust him not to pick up a 3rd foul or 4th foul in the first half, even though he picked up that silly second one, because ultimately that game might be the difference between a 1 seed and a 2 seed with that extra loss in SEC play. Like, you have to look at this, and Barnes is awesome in so many different ways, but I do think this is a stubborn rule that he has to adjust, because are you going to do that? Does the rule apply in tournament time? Like, if that situation happens in tournament time, are you going to go down that same rabbit hole? Are you going to, when does it not apply? When does it apply? Like, it's a dangerous game because you can't, like, every minute matters. And when they go at Bishop Oswell, who I think is going to be a good player for you, back-to-back times, and that's a quick -4 in that spot. Like, the idea that you couldn't have built on the lead on Saturday in Vanderbilt, because I think that was his thing, is like, oh, well, if you don't foul at the end of the first half, then we're okay. We're only down 2 and we survived it. It's like, yeah, but if you put him back in, even at the 4-minute mark, you might be leading. Like, Zakai had the lead. Like, you could have been building on that lead. You didn't have to go in behind at the half. Like, that's not, like, there is a glass half full look at this, which is your best player being on the floor usually has meant good things for Tennessee basketball this year. So I think on Saturday, Zakai, I mean, he has to play a bunch. Like, Zakai and Chaz Lanier have to stay out of foul trouble. They have to play a bunch. Chaz has to continue what he was doing on Tuesday night, and handle that kind of road pressure well, because, I mean, they're going to be after him, and Auburn is going to be all over him. He's got to shoot. He can't be hesitant. And then Igor. I mean, Igor is like the one where I need to be on the floor, sitting next to Vitello, where I'm just shouting at Igor, like, shoot that, because he's a good shooter who doesn't feel like he's a good shooter, I feel like. And it's just, he'll hesitate and he'll look at it and it's like, man, you're a good shooter. Like, I understand you had some early struggles, but like, you can shoot. We saw it at Charlotte. We've seen it. Like, you have, I mean, the top of the key 3 is probably his best spot. Like, Jemai, rise and fire every corner 3. Like, if you're wide open there, you gotta take advantage of it. But with Igor, I feel like that's the one where it's like, you got to be more aggressive, man. You got to take those shots because you're good at them. You got to get those 3s up. And especially on the road, I think Igor's going to have a big game for Tennessee to be right there too.
With the Zakai thing, I was not as up in arms as most was about the sitting on the bench with 2 fouls. I do agree for the most part with Rick on the thought process there. I'm very much, to me, it's all about the score in the game, because we saw earlier this season, Rick gives Zakai some trust at Illinois, and Zakai burned him by picking up his 3rd foul, and he eventually fouled out. And I realized that Zakai didn't pick up his 3rd foul until he intentionally fouled with under a minute left. But is he picking up his 3rd foul in that situation if he doesn't sit on the bench at the end of the first half for 7 minutes? That's theoretically 7 minutes. He could have picked up his 3rd foul. And it's not so much that I disagree with anything that you said. And Shumpert and I had this conversation in the crow's nest there at Vanderbilt right after the press conference. And he I don't know if you all have spoken. I'm sure y'all have, but you two are very much on the same page. And it's not that I disagree at all with what y'all are saying. It's just, because he is so valuable, is it worth risking him late in the first half when the margin in the game, although I recognize the momentum completely flipped on its head, that's very frustrating. But to me, when I'm willing to put him back in is when it almost flirts with what happened in the first half at Florida, to where this game is completely getting away from Tennessee. Put Zakai back in. It's almost a double-digit margin. They're up 12. They're up 14. Put Zakai in before there's not even a second half worth playing for. That's kind of where I feel it's okay to put Zakai back in. I am more conservative, but I'm also more conservative by nature, and I do have a little more of that old-school approach, like obviously Rick does and so many coaches do. And I realize that's a hot topic in today's game, because there are new age coaches who are willing to play their guy with 2 fouls. You saw Illinois do it with their star freshman over the weekend, and it benefited him there in that first half. I do think KJ eventually fouled out in the second half, but I think for the most part he stayed out of further foul trouble in the first half. So I didn't have this big of an issue, especially like when I look at the game and I see other areas. It's like, okay, well, they're getting bullied in the paint, and they should not be getting bullied in the paint by one of the shortest teams in the country. They're dominating the glass. Where's Jordan Gainey? Why is he not stepping up with Zakai on the bench? Chaz Lanier got a shot going, but he's getting the basketball ripped from him too easily. Like, there are so many other little things, and the game was still within reach and close to where I didn't feel, especially after what happened at Illinois, that it was worth it to put Zakai back in there. Because if you put Zakai back in there, and what makes Zakai so great is he's so aggressive, and he attacks. If he puts himself in a position, here's the other thing: do we trust the refs to not call something silly on Zakai in college basketball? Because Lord knows that they can pick up some ticky-tacky fouls like we saw with Pat Adams this past Tuesday night with Mississippi State in town. Is it worth him in that moment potentially losing him for the second half? So I do subscribe to the theory that Rick rolled with. I know it wasn't the most popular on Saturday, but I just didn't. I'd rather have Zakai ensure that I have Zakai for the majority of the second half than not. And it was unfortunate because I agree with where you're coming from. Tennessee was in total command of that basketball game until Zakai picked up his second foul, and the game totally flipped. Vanderbilt was in complete control, stole the momentum and everything. I agree. It's just I don't want to risk him picking up his third foul and then the second half looks totally different, is my thinking. But overall, like, the offense needs to click more consistently, I guess is the way to put it, because on the road it just has not done so for a variety of reasons. At Florida, they just didn't make shots. Everything slipped after that. Vanderbilt, it was frustrating because Zakai gets into foul trouble. You're playing well on both sides of the ball, and then your offense just completely disappeared with him out of the game. And then the offense finds its way back in the second half, and then the defense slips. So can they piece it all together at once? I mean, this is a game this weekend that you can't play around and not show up and hit shots and take care of the basketball and expect to win. I mean, you absolutely have to. And you mentioned a couple of different guys. Like, I think they need their best performance from a lot of them. Darlinstone Dubar, Jordan Gainey, Cade Phillips. I mean, they all have to be playing their best basketball. That's what it's going to take to beat this Auburn team that is, I don't think there's any doubt that they're the best team in the country. Duke may like a word with that, but I think Auburn's the best team in the country.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the different guys, like who do you have the least feel for right now on this team, Ben? Who do you understand the least?
Darlinstone Dubar. I just don't know what he's going to give Tennessee night in, night out.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Bishop Boswell would be another answer, but he's a true freshman. He's supposed to be going through what he's going through, and that was an unfortunate sequence for him at Vanderbilt, because I thought he did a great job of keeping his defender in front of him for the most part and applying pressure on the ball, but then he bit on the pump fake back-to-back times, and that's what led to him picking up those back-to-back fouls. But Bishop's not supposed to be contributing in the manner that D-Stone is. And I still don't really know where D-Stone fits in. He needs to be playing double-digit minutes per night, I feel. But what does that look like next to Chaz Lanier, Jemai Mashak, Zakai Ziegler, Jordan Gainey, Felix, Cade, the other pieces, Igor? I think he's capable of knocking down shots. I think I said this, or we talked about it the last time I was on with you, but there were moments during the offseason in which he would take over a practice and Rick would challenge him to do something offensively, make a shot, and I mean, he would just take over practice and knock down shot after shot after shot. So he's capable of it. And I guess if you're looking at it from a glass half full approach, he did deal with the early season setbacks with the personal matter, the concussion. So maybe there's still time for him to find a rhythm and all hope is not lost that he's not going to reach that point because he was behind the 8 ball for a good chunk of the early season games. But they've got to find a way to get him in the mix because everybody's talking about Tennessee's depth, and 9 scholarship guys are available, and like I hear it, but 9 scholarship guys can get things done with 9 scholarship guys. But the problem you run into is you need all 9 guys contributing. If one is not contributing in D-Stone, and you already have another who's a true freshman and learning in Bishop, now that those 9 available scholarship guys, now you're down to like 7.5. And that's when the depth becomes more of a question mark. So I don't know about D-Stone. I just don't know exactly what he gives this team. I think he can give them a bit of an attitude that they need at times, like they're going to need on Saturday night against an Auburn team that will have an attitude in their home environment. They need D-Stone to have some of that Texas flavor to him that he had a couple of weeks ago, to where he's doing the horns down to the crowd and doing the throat slash and kind of chirping. They need that D-Stone to show up, and he's such a physically imposing basketball player that there's no reason he shouldn't be on the boards. There's no reason he shouldn't be using his his strength to his advantage defensively, and he needs to knock that. It's kind of like Igor, because I agree with what you were saying. Igor's a better shooter than his numbers would indicate at this point. From both of those guys, but sticking with the D-Stone topic, they need him to knock down more shots as well, especially with how inconsistent the shooting has been a little bit here of late.
Well, I think it's also like I wondered after, because part of the scholarship thing, it's like you can't give the Estrella thing's not their fault, and the Cam Carr thing's not their fault. Like the way it is just there's stuff that happened, and unfortunately it happened, and you're kind of thin there. You talk about Bishop Boswell was not supposed to contribute this year. He's kind of been thrown into some emergency situations with foul trouble, and this, that, and the other. But he does seem like a better long-term fit than Freddie DeLeon last year, and more of a long-term guy who will stick around and develop under Barnes. But I do think D-Stone, to me, where he gets a DMPCD last week in the second half against Vandy, and then plays a little bit. I mean, he got 4 shots up in the first half, I think, against Mississippi State in like 3 minutes. Like that is something that Tennessee does not have, and that's something that Dalton Knecht would do. Like, I'm not comparing Dalton Knecht and Dubar, but some of the stuff, it's the confidence, and there are some similarities in terms of like, hey, it doesn't look like they know exactly what they're doing on defense, but they're long, they're physically imposing on offense. They are knockdown shooters. I mean, he was a 40% shooter at Hofstra the last 2 years. I think D-Stone, more than anything, and like you said, like what he was at Texas, he definitely likes being like a road villain and that kind of thing. I mean, this is a great D-Stone game, but Barnes has to give him a longer leash. I think he's just someone who needs more. Like, you're already thin as it is, and when you're in these shooting spells and stuff like that, like, I understand D-Stone's not gonna be perfect this year. Like, D-Stone's gonna have defensive issues, I think, all year long. I don't think this is getting cleaned up in late January. But if he's a guy, when you have so many timid shooters on this team at times, like, D-Stone is getting a shot up. Like, I read about that sequence I think it was against Mississippi State, where he misses a 3 and he doesn't get back, and they do a quick transition bucket. He goes right back, and Zakai drives, and he goes right in the corner, and he rises and fires right again, and he makes it. Like, D-Stone's gonna keep shooting. Like, it doesn't matter, even if like he has some misses every now and then. Like, you need that confidence. I mean, he's an older player, and he's going to keep getting shots up. And when you go through those issues on the road, like, I understand it's defense first for Barnes, but like, you don't have many guys who are as confident as Dubar getting shots up, because they will, like, there's a lot of standing around. There's a lot of moving the ball around the perimeter where they start getting into sets with the 12-second mark, 13-second mark on the shot clock, and you're like, all right, man. Sometimes you just need guys who are going to not be afraid to drive. And I mean, he should have gotten a couple of foul calls where he drove to the basket on Tuesday night and didn't get them. There was a weird whistle against Mississippi State. But Dubar, I think, is just going to be up and down. Like, I think he's going to have a game where he gives you really nothing, but he still got 5 shots. But I think he needs consistently like 10 to 15 minutes a game. Like, I feel like he needs some comfortability, or know when he's going to go in and let him make some mistakes and let him hit some shots, because I think the shots will fall if he gets some more time, because I just think he's that kind of streaky player, which is okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said, and he has a proven track record of being a good shooter. The shot looks a little quirky. It's a little flat compared to most, but he has a proven track record of shooting those shots at a high percentage. And speaking of needing him on Saturday night, I mean, this is the same guy that at Hofstra went into Cameron Indoor Arena last year and busted Duke's head. I mean, knocked down 7 threes and was not intimidated. And it's not that this team lacks those type of guys that are not intimidated. It's just that it's always nice to have another one when you're playing the Dukes of the world, Iowa State, Auburn, Alabama, some of these other SEC road environments like playing in Rupp Arena. You want guys like that are not going to be able to shoot the basketball, and he's somebody that he does need to handle the details more efficiently, more consistently, because he does do things that drive a coach insane. Whether it's Rick Barnes or the other night, I mean, he turns the basketball over, doesn't get back on defense, and Mississippi State gets an easy transition bucket because of D-Stone and Rick pulls him. And I don't blame Rick for pulling him in that moment either. It's those things that the problem is that he's the mistakes that he is making are the non-negotiable mistakes. Like if you do this, you're getting pulled because it's so simple of a mistake that it can't happen at this level. So Rick Barnes, he does need to give him a longer leash. We'll see if that actually happens. That's not typically Rick's style until they truly earn it. But D-Stone also needs to do a better job of handling the easy things because if he can handle the easy things, then I do think Rick will give him a longer leash. But he's somebody, again, as we've both said, in order for Tennessee to reach its full potential to make a Final Four, Elite Eight again, D-Stone has to be a piece to the pie. I mean, he just has to. Because he's capable of being that guy. And also, just again, with the numbers, like 9 scholarship guys, you can get by with 9 scholarship guys, but all 9 or 8 of the 9, aside from the true freshmen, need to be contributing in a pretty significant way within their role each night.
I agree. Let's wrap with some baseball stuff here, Ben. Give me a Ben McKee guy in 2025. Who have you already penciled in as a Ben McKee guy?
Ben McKee guy, man. I believe I've already gone on and on and on here about my love for Jay Abernathy, the true freshman. He's a dude, just in the field, at the plate, running on the bases. I mean, he's just absolutely explosive, dynamic, could win SEC Freshman of the Year. We'll see if he opens the season out in left field. He and Colby Backus appear to be battling it out there. Colby, obviously the veteran, a right-handed bat that Tennessee needs at the moment. But Jay Abernathy, more of that traditional leadoff guy. So in terms of the newcomers, like he's the one that I've been most excited to watch. He was just so much fun to watch in the fall. A Ben McKee guy, man. There's so many interesting pieces to this team, and I guess I should say that my type of guy on a baseball field, because I was a utility player, I love the utility players. So like a Dalton Bargo is right up my alley. I love the guy that's unselfish, willing to do anything for the team, play solid defense, can play multiple spots. And to me, that's Dalton Bargo. I mean, he does not care about anything but winning. And now with the Alex Perry news, he has a great opportunity, it seems, at first base to grab that job by the horns and run with it. Grab the bull by the horns and run away with that job. And his bat was already going to be in the lineup more often than not. He was going to start, I feel like, more often than not. But the question was where. And he was going to bounce around, I feel like, catcher, DH, first, could play a little bit of third base. Can play the corner outfield spot. So I think he was going to be in a different spot every time out. But now, if he can take that job and run with it, I think he's probably your everyday first baseman as of January 23rd. So I love me some Dalton Bargo. I think he's in for a big year. Stone Lawless would be the other one that I think Stone Lawless is going to have a terrific season. I think he's one of Tennessee's best 5 or 7 hitters, even as a second-year guy who didn't play a ton last year as a true freshman. He just has so much power in the bat. He's everything you want in a catcher mentally and from a leader. Cannon Peebles is going to be the starting catcher, but Stone's going to be back there. I think they're going to do the whole Peebles catches 2 a weekend. Stone gets the other game, at least at the beginning of the season.
But who do you think makes the most sense for Stone to give like that? Which pitcher do you think will end up being the most comfortable with him?
Well, it depends on which 3 starters end up starting.
That's true.
They got to figure that part out first. I think it'll be Liam Doyle, obviously. Nate Snead, I think, will start.
You think Snead's going to be a starter?
I think as of today, going into preseason practice, I think that they're moving forward with the idea that Snead's going to be a starter.
Huh. That's kind of okay. But that was not on the radar here, Ben.
I anticipate Snead being in the rotation opening weekend.
You think so? He might be the Sunday guy.
Yeah, and of course that all depends on how Tony and Frank want to line that up. And who is the third guy? That's the big question mark. You've got the freshman Tegan Coons. I think he has a great opportunity. He was very impressive in the fall, and he's capable of doing what Blake Tidwell, Chase Burns, Drew Beam did as true freshmen. You've got Brandon Arvidson, who is just absolutely nasty. The JUCO signee who was once at A&M, went to JUCO, was signed to Texas, and then when Schlossnagel, who he transferred away from at A&M, when he got the Texas job, he's like, no, don't want to play for you. And Tennessee took advantage of that one. He's just filthy. I'm curious to see what role they give him. He could be a starter. He could be that long relief guy like what we've seen from Camden Sewell and others. Dylan Loy, I mean, it's hard not to consider him as well. I think he's probably the one that gets the nod, kind of like Xander did last year to start the year if the others aren't ready. So we'll see what happens there. But Stone, I'm curious to see what they do there. Usually they like to break it up in whoever the second catcher is, he gets the second game of the weekend, and instead of catching them back to back. But I think Stone's in for a big year. So if you're asking me who my Ben McKee guy is in terms of buying stock in somebody who maybe isn't as known as others, I'm buying a ton of stock in Stone. He crushes the ball, and I think he's one of their 5-7 best hitters. And it's going to be hard for Tony and Elander to keep him out of the lineup.
Is he a draft guy after this year or no?
I don't believe so, but don't quote me on that. I haven't looked that one up. I believe I'm pretty sure that he'll be back for a third year, and he is not going to be draft eligible. I know Dean Curley is draft eligible this year. There's another sophomore that's draft eligible as well that I'm blanking on off the top of my head. But Stone's a great piece to this baseball team. I had somebody tell me a couple of weeks ago that last season, even while he was not playing, the veterans on the team, they didn't go to Tony and demand that Stone travel, but they went to Tony and was adamant that Stone deserves to travel because they loved being around him and felt like he was just as key of a piece as anything to the locker room last year. And that was as a true freshman while he was not playing. So I think that tells you all you need to know about Stone Lawless. And plus, he's from the great city of Huntsville, Alabama.
There you go. You're all in. That's the Ben McKee guy. You started off with Abernathy and Bargo, but we know what the answer is here. It's Stone Lawless. Like the answer is Stone Lawless for you, Ben.
Well, the problem is he went to Huntsville High School, not the great Buckhorn High School.
Yeah,
there in Huntsville, Alabama. But no, I'm all in on Stone. He's a great kid. He's a great hitter. I think he's going to be one of Tennessee's big bats this year. There's so many interesting pieces to this team. There's a lot of guys I'm in on. I mean, they had the talent to get to Omaha, right? Like we were talking about off the top and win a championship. So the most of the lineup seems set in terms of where guys are going to play in the field, but there's still a couple of other moving parts. And then there's a ton of moving parts with the pitching rotation, in terms of roles in the rotation, roles in the bullpen. Are they going to have a closer? And I'm fascinated to see how it all sorts out these next 2 months.
It's strong though. I think it's gonna be a lot more pitch. I think the pitching is gonna be a lot stronger and deeper than it was.
It's gonna be like Tony keeps saying, I think Tony mentioned this once, but then you talk to others in the program and they think it's like it's going to be more like what 22 and 23 was in terms of the high velocity, bigger, more physical, imposing players. The premium stuff that you see now in baseball, it's going to be more evident in these arms. Thomas Crabtree, the JUCO arm they picked up, Tanner Franklin from Kennesaw State. They just have power arm after power arm after power arm, much like they did a couple of years ago.
100%. Ben McKee, what can the GoVols check out from you and the team over at GoVols247.com this week?
A lot of Tennessee Auburn content. Wes and myself will be making the trip down on Saturday. Rick Barnes speaks tomorrow morning on Friday, followed by Cade Phillips, because Auburn is in Cade's neck of the woods. Cade is from Jacksonville, Alabama, so I imagine that's why he is speaking with the media. But Rick and Cade will speak tomorrow morning. We get to view practice afterwards. I believe Bruce Pearl is speaking to the media today. So a lot of Tennessee Auburn preview content. Of course, Ryan Callahan and Patrick Brown have all the latest on Tennessee football. Football is hosting an important offensive line transfer on a visit this week, starting today. So plenty of content there. And I've actually, now that we're done with this, I'm going to sit down and hammer out some written Tennessee baseball lineup projections that will be posted at some point today as well. So a lot going on with all the major sports at Tennessee.
I love it. Go subscribe. GoVols247 today if you're not already, and keep up with the great team and all of Ben's great work over there. And also on YouTube. They're on YouTube now, youtube.com, GoVols247. Go subscribe there as well. Ben, thank you so much for the time. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll check back in again very soon.
Thanks, Chase. Have a great
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.